this title. And he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to the warm down. I don't really like doing them over StreamYard like this, but sometimes you have to do them, and especially when it's Kieran. Kieran, thank you for joining me. Kieran from The Price of Football. Actually, I got your new edition.
Oh, lordy, blordy.
If you'd like to go pick yourself one of these up, then we'll throw the link in the description below. But there you go. That's what Kieran is. Kieran's also got a podcast of the same name, which is well worth checking out for football finance. And this week, more than any other, we need to talk to Kieran. Spookily, now we'll be posting this on April 22nd. We're actually recording it on April 21st. So we're recording this mid-afternoon, which means that there's probably another 8 hours of news to break that we're probably not going to cover. So we preemptively apologize for that. But we last spoke on the 21st of April last year. Kieran, what a year it's been since then.
It's not been dull, has it, Stephen? Not been dull at all. Off the pitch, it's been absolute lunacy. On the pitch, ups and downs.
It's been an absolute wild. And obviously, we had the delayed start. We were 6 weeks away from football returning, I guess, when we last spoke. You've had the truncated ending of a season, the accelerated start of a season. We've almost now completed a Premier League season. And I still haven't been inside the stadium since.
I managed to get to the Amex for one game.
As press?
Sorry?
As press?
No, because we were tier 3 down here south. So we had two or three home matches where crowds were allowed back. Because I've been watching loads of non-league. I've been watching sort of county and things like that, and a few preliminary FA Cup matches when they allowed us back in. But yeah, I went back for one match, and there was only 2,000 people allowed, but it still made a difference. Half of them still left with 15 minutes to go, of course.
You've not been at a game for how long? And you've anyway, better things to do than watch this shit.
Yeah. Oh, Strictly's on tonight.
Right. Anyway, on the last time that we did speak, we spoke about lots of things. We talked about the transfer market collapse. We did speak about the Glazer debt. We spoke about economic issues relating to no fans being at games, something on finances in the Premier League. We really need to talk about the European Super League. Where would you like to begin with this?
Well, first of all, it's not the European Super League, it's Super League. Because it was going to be a franchise. There was going to be a nation Super League, and there was going to be it was going to link to the MLS, and then they were all going to come together and have their own giant little competition. So, we're thinking, because we just focus on Europe, we're going, well, it's just going to be these clubs. No, they were going to then create some form of global cup competition in the off season, or to rival sort of the FIFA World Club Championship. So it was all planned out, and it's far bigger than we ever realized, I think.
Wow. Now, fundamentally, I'm not opposed to seeing an extended Champions League where if I could watch United play against Boca Juniors, I am definitely all about that. If we're currently both qualifying for things that mean that we are the best in our nations, because that's what the Champions League, even in its expanded format of coming fourth and qualifying for it, is still about. It's still the best teams in the country against the best teams in those countries and the best teams in these countries. I'd actually love if we had a bit of a level-ish playing field where we could actually see who the best teams in the world were. It wasn't so European-centric. But where's that come from in terms of the Super League and the MLS aspects and stuff like that?
Well, I talk and listen to people in the game just as you do. And, from a finance point of view, this was a way of making it more global. FIFA would have been actually really keen on this because they have the FIFA World Club Championship, but if we're honest, nobody takes it particularly seriously. They've wanted to expand it for some time because, of course, they've seen the success of the Champions League, and FIFA, they only make profits 1 year in every 4 when the FIFA the FIFA National World Cup takes place. So to have this perhaps every 4 years as well, as an alternative tournament, that would be fantastic for FIFA's finances. And of course, the owners would be more than happy because you've only got to look at the viewing figures for the World Cup. If they could get half of those figures for this competition, it would have been ridiculously profitable, especially if you went to pay-per-view.
Yeah, and you touched on pay-per-view. Just before we started, you was talking about pay-per-view, and you believe that United and also Liverpool under John Henry, they were the drivers behind a lot of the let's call it the Super League, I guess, the Super League stuff, and that within those provisions there was going to be pay-per-view matches that the club sold directly.
That's right. So under the Super League proposals, it's 10 teams in each division. So you got 9 home games, and it looked as if 3 of those home games would be given to the clubs to broadcast, to market themselves. So last year, if we look at 2019, let's ignore the impact of COVID. In a normal season, Manchester United would make 250 million pounds a year from broadcast revenue. Now, United have got 1 billion fans in the world, according to United. Let's say United can sell tickets to 5% of them at a £5 each. Yeah. That's 250 million pounds per match. You get the same from one match as you get from the whole season. You do that 3 times, plus you're going to get the money from the Premier League, plus you're going to get the rest of the money from the Super League competition. Yeah, we're talking about United potentially getting close to £1 billion a year purely from TV money. And that completely changes the revenue model, the profit model. And given that it was going to be combined with a wage cap, where's that money going to go? Hello, Joel, look at my pockets. They're full.
Interesting you mentioned the wage cap. I've literally just recorded a video which everyone could have gone and watched yesterday. And I didn't know about the wage cap, but I actually theorized, I think there'll probably be a wage cap because of the way American sports work. And I can see it being this sort of closed league kind of system. I wondered, these clubs are still doing it to make profit. They're not doing it to pay players loads and lose that control. I thought there's going to be an element of control in this. Everyone's going to raise levels, but I wonder if there was going to be a salary cap. You think there was? Yeah,
there was going to be a salary cap, and also because it was taking place over Europe and we've got different tax regimes and so on, it was going to be tax neutral. So therefore it was going to be, you get a maximum of, let's say, 150 grand or 200 grand a week net, whether you're playing in Italy or Spain or England. Having said that, I know a few tax accountants. You probably know a few tax accountants, Stephen. There's ways and ways. There's ways we can get around this if the clubs really wanted to. I'm not saying they would. I'm not saying there's anything, of course, unethical or immoral about the owners of these football clubs. They're all fine, upstanding guys, aren't they? We're all so proud of them at present.
To a man.
That's right. Well, when I talk to my kids, what do you want to grow up? I want to grow up to be like Ed Woodward. He's the man that sets the standards for corporate behaviour. So there was a proposal for a wage cap, and that wage cap was that the wages would be 55 or football costs, because that also includes agent costs, 55% of revenue. Now, FIFA currently say if you're over 70%, you're on the naughty step. So what are they doing? They're driving down the cost, because what they don't want is the situation we've seen in the Premier League, is that every time a new TV deal comes in, you've got Raiola knocking on the door saying, okay, well, you just got an extra 20%. My client wants an extra 20% because, sorry, Minnie, we've got a wage cap here. Can't do anything about it. So it was all geared towards generating more money coming in. That money, so they make more profits. What could they do with the profits? Well, they could reduce season ticket prices. They could reduce match day ticket prices. They could reduce the frankly ridiculous prices of a home and away team shirt these days, which you're not going to get much change out of 70 quid. Or they could have put it into the pockets of the owners. Now, I don't know what they were going to do. You don't know what they're going to do. We'll just let people guess.
No idea.
No idea.
I have no idea what would they do? What would billionaires do with extra cash? I don't know. I have no idea. It's a very good point, though. And it's not necessarily without merit bringing in a salary cap, because I do think that you are seeing such a stretching. And I'm not even talking from being a United fan perspective, because I know United have in the past been one of the main drivers in upping wages across the leagues and also stretching transfer records. I know we're not without blaming in this, and we've had our hand in the cookie jar with this. But I see the stretching of the leagues doing this. The bottom teams are taking this many points, the top teams are taking this many points, and it's becoming less and less competitive. When I look at football in the 60s and in the 70s, it was very much like the Championship, where on any given day you would see different teams being successful and being unsuccessful, and it wasn't necessarily seen as the binary sack him if you didn't win a league that you see now. And I think because it was much more competitive, there was maybe a little bit more patience. Whereas now I think people just demand success so hard that I think it's ruining the game, where there's only so many people you can buy. There's only so much money you can spend on players. And I do think it does need reining in somehow. And FFP was a complete and utter shambles. That was unenforceable from the start. Clearly, Manchester City had a big hand in making sure that never went down properly well. Is the salary cap the way to do it?
It works in the USA, and as well as having a salary cap in US franchise sports, the European franchise for football would have had a salary collar. So, because otherwise, you think about it, if you were one of the 15 founder members and you're never going to get relegated, and you were guaranteed £200 million a year coming in, why not just go and sign a bunch of third division players, pay them 500 quid a week, and just pocket the money? So to stop clubs doing that, as well as having a limit on how much you've got to pay players, the way that it works in the States is that if you pay less than the collar, which is normally 85% of the maximum, you got fined $1 for every dollar you were below the collar. So it would have had a narrowing of the wages between the top and bottom clubs. And I agree with you, it would actually make it a potentially competitive product. If we had that in the Premier League, I think that would be good as well, because it would lead to, as you were saying, what we've got presently. We've got Liverpool and City, the last 2 seasons have been getting 100 points or pretty close to it. You and I both old enough to remember you used to win the Premier League on mid-70s.
Yeah. You could lose 6 games, remember that?
Yeah.
I remember Sir Alex Ferguson. Yeah, you could lose 6 games. Oh my God, you lose 6 games now, you might not even get into Europe.
Yep, absolutely.
Is the European Super League dead?
It's pretty close to it. The threat of the European Super League has been the blackmail vehicle through which the large clubs have extracted more and more money out of both the Premier League and UEFA every time there's a new TV deal up. And they've been very successful with that threat. And to be honest, if they had any sense, they wouldn't have revealed their hand this time. They were getting so many. They're getting so many concessions out of UEFA. I don't see how it can come back, although we've seen Agnelli today still saying, I think it's a beautiful project. We've got Perez. He's still saying, and the Spanish clubs are claiming that the English clubs are evil because they've stolen this wonderful project. But I thought what's happened in the last 24 hours or last 48 hours in terms of the fight back has probably never made me more proud to be a football fan. I teach at the University of Liverpool, and I've got my mates contacting me saying, I hate to say this, but I now love Gary Neville. And they shouldn't be doing that, should they? They should not be doing that.
No, we was live until midnight last night covering it all. And we read out one of Jordan Henderson's statements, and one of the lads was like, really warming to him. I was like, right, it's dead now. Let's just settle on that shit.
Let's just remember. Let's remember who we are.
It's been like I said, it's been an absolutely wild. I mean, Jose Mourinho got sacked on Monday. No one even cares. It's just so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And actually, Liverpool and Leeds as a football match, and as you quite rightly said when we joined the call, Chelsea-Brighton as a football match didn't matter. And I'm not even sure United Leeds this weekend's going to matter amidst all of this carnage.
Yeah, I agree with you. Brighton are desperate for points. Chelsea are desperate for points, but the players were half-hearted. And I spent most of the match, as I presume you did, probably last night and the previous night. You're checking your WhatsApp messages, you're checking Twitter, because things were changing by the minute. And actually, what was coming out of the studio and what was coming up sort of below the cap in terms of the captions, as the sides fell one by one, you're going. It was the closest I can remember to the fall of the Berlin Wall. I remember watching that live, going, this is true history. Well, last night was football's version of that.
Yeah, I think when you started to hear, there was talk of City wavering early doors yesterday afternoon, which was pretty quick in the grand scheme of things from the announcement and the statements that came out late on Sunday. As soon as you started to see that sort of waver, that was the gap in the armor. That was the weakness in the chain. That was where you thought, maybe this can be beaten, because Monday, I was certain I was going to be watching the Super League. I thought billionaires get their own way every single time. There's not a chance that this... Like, when have you ever seen a bad idea go back in the jar? It seems to just be like, get used to it. This is what's happening now. And it honestly felt inevitable. So seeing them, actually, we've pulled out. And then we was on air and it was, there's talk Manchester United are pulling out. And you're like, oh my God, have we done this? It honestly felt like a victory last night.
I think it was, we've won the battle as football fans. There's still a huge war because these people do not, and it doesn't matter what team you support, because you're from Manchester. I've lived in Manchester for 40 years. Half the people you work with are going to be City fans. Half the City fans, the people they work with are going to be United fans. So we're rivals, but we do have a common goal and a common belief. And the way that we fell in love with football was exactly the same. You went along, you were 6 or 7 years old, your dad or your uncle or your granddad or your auntie took you, and that was it. And you fell in love with United. Or it doesn't matter what the club is. The club's an irrelevance, but you fell in love with football. And these people were threatening to steal with it because you grew up at times wondering, and again, I'm old enough to remember when United were relegated. And I've seen City relegated and things like that. But it was losing and winning were just as important. And what they were planning to replace it with was a glorified set of exhibition matches where actually half of them never mattered.
Yep. Can you imagine what, at the moment, United against Real Madrid? Let's go back to that Champions League quarterfinal a few years ago. Jose Mourinho versus Alex Ferguson. The feeling, the noise in Old Trafford around that game. You move that forward to 2025 when we're 7th and 8th out of 10 with 2 games to go, and neither of us are getting relegated and neither of us are winning anything. Old Trafford won't be full. And at the moment, people go, well, I'd rather play Real Madrid than West Brom. Cool. It will feel worse than playing West Brom. It won't even feel that good after that first season, in the second season when there's nothing to play for, because the whole idea of sport is the competitive element to it. You take that away. I mean, if you try and logically think about what we do and what we spend a hell of a lot of our leisure money and time on, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Going standing here watching them blokes that I don't know play them blokes that I don't know. The uniforms are a bit stupid. If I saw a man walking down the street dressed like that, I'd go, that's a bit weird, mate. What are you doing?
They'd be wearing a tag, wouldn't they?
It's accepted.
Yeah. Football is the most stupid thing in the world. it is. I spent 40 years of my life in Manchester with, United are a huge football team. City are now a huge football team. We cannot deny that. I've got Liverpool 35 miles down the road. What am I doing every fortnight? I'm going down to Brighton to watch a shit football team. But it's my football team, and that's what mattered. And I've now just moved back down to Brighton, and I commute from Brighton to Liverpool. And the reason why I do that is that after a match, I can now spend an extra couple of hours in the pub with my mates talking about the match, and I don't have to go and rush to get the last train back to Manchester. Now, you as a football fan, you'd say, yeah, I understand that. And I talk to anybody that's not football, and they think I've just gone stark raving mad, commuting from Brighton to Liverpool to work.
Yeah, it's insane. You can't apply logic to this sort of stuff. No, I watch Manchester United because my dad watched Manchester United, who watched it because his dad watched Manchester United, who watched it because, like, my great-granddad went in 1933, and because he decided that's what he was doing, now there's 5 generations of us have all just been roped into this thing that we kind of don't really have a say in. And like I said, logically, it's nonsense. Like, I couldn't make an argument for why, but guess what? We're here, and I'm not changing it either.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful love in the world.
But on that, in the past week, hearing the likes of Perez coming out and actually saying, myself and you, we are legacy fans. There was this sort of knowledge that we weren't really liked or respected or valued, which I've never really understood in the grand scheme of things, considering how much we spend on season tickets and stuff. We were never really loved by the modern football club. We were never treated with any sort of reverence, which wouldn't make a lot of sense for any other business in the world. They were always chasing the new customer and not looking after the ones that are loyal. When you hear Perez coming out and saying, forget about these legacy fans, we're trying to chase the new fans, there's one thing suspecting that they don't like you. Knowing that they do not give a toss about you really turned a lot of people off in the last 48 hours, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. But the thing is, Stephen, it's like this. Yeah, we as legacy fans, what do we do? Well, I'm at the age now where buying a shirt each year, it doesn't look good. Yeah, as you say, a bloke walking down the street with a football shirt looks a bit strange. A 60-year-old bloke walking down the street with a football shirt just looks far too dodgy for anybody's good. But I'll still buy them. But am I going to buy one every week? No. What the Glazers and Ed Woodward want to do is to get rid of as many season ticket holders as possible and fly in more tourists, more plastics, more day trippers. Because every week they're going to go to the mega store and they're all going to buy a shirt and they're all going to buy other forms of merchandise and they're going to buy a program and they're going to go and buy the utter shite that they serve us up for food and drink because they know we've got no alternative. And, we've stopped doing it. Us regulars go, I've just had enough, and I'll spend an extra half hour in the pub, and I'll get to the ground at 10 to 3, and at 5 o'clock I'm straight out. If you're supporting a club and they've insulted you for years by serving up garbage which is overpriced. The non-legacy fans, they'll want a United burger, and they'll want as many drinks as they can in the plastic cups which have got the club's badge on, and you can simply exploit them. Those fans are simply pots of money to be exploited by the club, and you are getting in the way of Ed Woodward and the Glazers in terms of making that money, because you are a loyal fan. You're going to be at Old Trafford till the day you die, and the only good thing you can say is that they don't put up the prices of season tickets these days. And I think you got to give them some credit for that. But why do they not do that? Because they fear the backlash.
Yeah, I mean, it did rise significantly. The ticket that I'm on now is I'm in a slightly different location to where I was when the Glazers took over. My season ticket went from, I think it was £252 to £703. I think I did move a band in the midst of that. I think my original ticket that I had now is still double. I think it's 537 if I was still in the original spot that I would have been from 2005. So it's doubled. And it's at the point now at 703, I think it works out £37 a game. It's kind of at the point where I might go to 40, but 45 feels a bit like you're taking the piss out of me. Because if I look at every other aspect of my life, like if imagine I wanted to go to the cinema and to take me and my wife to the cinema. I don't take her to the match. She didn't like it. But I take my boy, and I go with my dad. If she was like, let's go to the cinema, I'll go, I'll just 45 quid each. I'd go, are you off your head? 45. But, and that's a one-off thing. I'm not going there 25 times a year, plus away games. Like, it's kind of at that pinch point now. And I know these Arsenal fans are going, Jesus, it's not been 45 quid a game for us for a decade. And I was thinking about this in depth, to be fair, the other day. they were talking about the 16 to 24-year-olds, or Perez was saying they're not interested in football. The fuck they are, mate. Yeah. But they don't get the same experience as I got. I think I must have been one of the last generations that got to go with my friends. At 16, I decided I was too cool to sit with my dad, and I wanted to go with my mates. And that's what I did. And I did that for about 15 years. Now I'm back with my dad. And I love it, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's got to go through that stage, or should go through that stage of probably being a bit of a Larry Bellend with their mates, rather than just being with their dad. But where does that happen in a modern all-seater, everyone's a season ticket stadium? Where does a 16-year-old get 35, 40 quid a game with his mate to go all the time? They would love to do that, but they can't afford to do that.
Yeah, and when you've got Perez and these others saying, "Oh, well, the young people aren't going to the football," well, it's because you priced them out of the game. Don't blame these young people. We've screwed them over in terms of there's no jobs for them to go to. They've got so few. Their prospects compared to my generation are so much narrower, and at the same time, we expect them to pay ridiculous prices. I started going when I came up to Manchester in 1980 to go to uni, and I'd go and watch United and City every week because I was a student, and it was 30p and 40 or 35 pence to watch as a student, and that was great. And you were seeing football, and I was on the Kidbacks, and I was in the Stretford End week in, week out.
What was that compared to a pint? Because I don't know what 35p relates to in terms of money at the time, but how much would a pint have been at the time?
Well, at the university bar, it was probably about the same, but it was mainly water you were drinking.
But either way, if you can say, for the price of a pint, you can watch a match, even a London pint, going to the match for a London pint price, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Everyone would still be pretty happy with that.
Yeah. And I mean, I did some calculations. I looked at the amount of money the football clubs have got coming in when the Premier League started to how much they've got coming in now, and compared that to inflation. And if pint prices had increased as fast as income and player wages, we would be paying £47 for a pint.
Wow.
That'd be. Can you imagine what Wetherspoons would be like under that type of regime?
Wow.
Exactly.
I've seen a few people actually, and I don't actually know if you're the man to ask for this, but I'm going to ask. I did briefly speak to Martin Edwards a couple of years ago, and I asked him about the Super League because I think it had come up in the news at the time. And he batted it away. I mean, he is the current president. It's an honorary position, but he is the current president of Manchester United. So there were certain things he was happy to talk about and certain things he wasn't happy to talk about. And I guess now Woodward's gone. Woodward was one of the one things that he did talk about and then asked me if I could remove it, which I'm gutted about because it was fucking brilliant. And he was none too plussed with him, let's put it that way. But I asked him about the Super League and a little bit about the advent of the Premier League. And I wasn't aware of, prior to the Premier League, the TV money that came in, I guess, from Match of the Day, because I don't know of anything else that was showing any First Division football, was split equally across all four divisions of the football pyramid. The Premier League changed that, obviously, to do, I think, was it 90% of the money stayed with the Premier League?
It was pretty much all of it, yes. Yeah.
And you also kept your gate receipts. I wasn't aware that you shared your gate receipts in the First Division.
Yeah, it was 45% went to both clubs and the 10% went to the FA to do whatever the FA does.
Wow. I didn't even, I thought it was 50-50. I wasn't aware that the FA kept it. I knew that is it thirds in the FA Cup?
No, in the FA Cup, again, it's 45-45-10. Actually, you're probably right. It was 50-50. I was thinking about the FA Cup. FA Cup's 45-45-10.
All right, okay. All right, so that was one of the things that changed with the advent of the Premier League. So that incentivized clubs to have nicer stadiums, to try and bring more fans in. And the average attendance has gone through the roof. I think it's almost doubled from the start of the Premier League to where we are now. Why is the Premier League different? If you are aware, why was the Premier League advent different to this Super League thing? Because I've seen so many people trying to equate the two things, which makes no sense. The competition side being the main one, but It's not even close to being the same, is it? Or am I wrong on that?
I think why are Manchester United in the Premier League? It's because they're there on merit. And if you take a look at the Premier League, we have had 49 different teams in the history of the Premier League. Now, some of them have just been there for one season, but what a season! I'm old enough to remember Oldham, Barnsley, these clubs. Hull City, and they were there because they deserved to be there. And when they started being a bit rubbish, they were replaced by somebody else. And you and I, we both played park football, Sunday morning football, and what motivates us on a Sunday morning? It's if we're good enough, we'll get promoted, and if we're too hungover, we're going to get relegated. And there was always something going for this, as far as the Premier as park football, and everything that we grew up with was related to do the right thing on the pitch, you get rewards. What the Super League proposed, what the franchise proposed was, we'd like you to win, and there'll be a bit more money, but if you don't win, you're still going to get 200 million quid. So who cares?
Yeah, but it's not in terms of the way it was a breakaway. It wasn't seen as anywhere near as egregious as this, was it? Was there opposition at the time that you remember?
There was opposition because it was concentrating a lot of money in the hands of a fewer number of clubs. But the key thing was that there was an entry route into the Premier League from the EFL. And the fact that we've seen a club such as Wigan come from non-league through to the Premier League, win the FA Cup, and okay, they've gone down again, but then of course they've been royally screwed over by their owners, is indicative of the nature of the problems that we see in football.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the beauties of the English football pyramid. And I think it needs the entire pyramid to survive. And I have wondered, is there a way to increase the revenue further down the pyramid? And I don't know if it does need a mandate from it. But the FA and the Football League obviously have zero input into the Premier League, don't they? They literally have to go cap in hand and then accept what they get given.
I think part of the problem in English football is that we've got three governing bodies. So the Premier League is independent of the Football Association, which is independent of the English Football League. It would be great if we had a regulator who could say to the Premier League, at present, the balance is wrong. So the clubs in the Premier League get a minimum of £95 million of TV money a year, and in the Championship you get 7. That gap is too big. So more money coming down into the lower divisions would stop some of the insanity we see financially. Because if you are in the Championship, why is it that every single club in the Championship loses money? Because they know that if they gamble, they'll get up to that £95 million, and therefore they're incentivized to gamble. We narrow those steps between the individual divisions, and then you can get rid of parachute payments as well. I know some people say that parachute payments are a blight on the game. They're a necessary evil, in my view, because you can't go from there to there without crashing. That's what what's the purpose of a parachute? It stops you from going at 150 miles an hour and splatting down on the ground. So you get rid of the gaps between the divisions. We see a bit of more maturity coming from the Premier League, some of the Premier League clubs, because there's no doubt that as far as those clubs are concerned, my club in Brighton, we're going back to the Championship. Now, it might be this season. Don't think it will be. It might be in 2 years. It might be, but we're going back. Whilst we're in the Premier League, we love it. So we're going back to the EFL at some point in time. Why not make it a smoother transition from one division to the other? And that will stop some of the craziness. And it's the same. It's the same from the Championship down to League One. So narrow the gaps. The EFL TV deal, 80% of it goes to the clubs in the Championship. Just 12% goes to the clubs in League One. So actually, you've got, again, this crazy arms race taking place between divisions. narrow the gaps, solve the problem.
What was the take up on the iFollow stuff? Because all I saw was a lot of criticism. It was like £10.99 per game, somewhere like that.
It was £10 per game. The quality was poor, and the streaming at times was amateurish. There's no doubt about that. As the season has progressed, it has got a bit better. It's not like watching football on Sky or BT. Nobody's pretending that. You've got one man there and a dog in terms of doing the commentary. You've got one cameraman there and a dog doing the camera work. But it's still your side. It's not brilliant, but we are seeing lots of fans sign up for it. And the clubs are making some money. It's not replacing the full loss of gate receipts, but for example, if Bolton are playing away, and Bolton have got a decent following, that they might sell 3,000 tickets when they're at Southend on a Tuesday night. So it is making a difference, but it's not as good as the money that's being lost.
£10 a game. Obviously, that's in the region of £40-50 a month, depending on how often you're playing. Doesn't that feel like you should be getting more for that subscription? Don't you think that if you made it £15, even £20 a month, and you get all of the games that are on in that month, that would probably have more of a take-up and therefore make more money?
It could be. I think that they could get the pricing better. I think that it's a better approach than we saw with the Premier League with their $14.95. Although I've spoken to a couple of chief executives of Premier League clubs, and they say we wanted it to be $7.95, and Sky and BT didn't, because Sky and BT were actually scared that if we were prepared to pay £8 a match, then the next time the TV deals came around, the Premier League club said, "No, we don't need you anymore, guys. We're going to stream, charge people £8 a match. It's proven that it's worked." So it was actually the broadcasters who forced through this higher price because they wanted pay-per-view to fail. It was in their business interests. And of course, if you take the Premier League away from Sky, what does Sky got to offer? The only reason why I've got Sky is for football. And it's because I'm a bloke, and that's how we think. And I don't want. I don't want the Real Wives of Sydney or Jesus Christ, the Real Wives of Cheshire. I mean, I lived in Knutsford for about 6 years, and seeing those goons wandering around at times used to do my head in.
I have Sky and BT for other sports, and one of them feels really dirty saying it at the moment, and that's obviously Super League.
That's proper Super League,
like palatable again somehow.
Yeah.
And I have BT for the UFC stuff. But yeah, like if it wasn't for those, I mean, to be fair, I have there's a TV right behind the camera there. I have usually French football on all day because they show a lot of League One highlights. I quite like watching that.
But would you pay the same amount, Stephen?
No, I wouldn't. No, I think I get a use out of what I'm spending it for. But yeah, I could definitely see. I mean, I could definitely see people not getting that usage out of it. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the Glazers. Are we potentially going to see the end of them? I don't know if I mentioned this earlier while I was on stream or if I mentioned it while I was off. I spoke to Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, this morning, and there's a 5-goal idea that him and Steve Rotherham, the mayor of Liverpool, are going to be bringing up, I assume. In the middle of that was a desire to get towards the 50+1 that Germany have got. But they are obviously aware of you can't just legislate that private companies sell almost half or just over half of their private business. That would get challenged in a court and be dismissed, within 20 minutes, I would imagine. But they said that they're going to start legislation that looks at trying to enact 51% of season ticket holders are polled when anything this big comes up. So when you saw Cardiff changing their colours, people changing their name, moving their stadiums, selling the stadium naming rights, or trying to join absolutely batshit crazy leagues led by Florentino Perez. What's your thoughts on that?
I think anything which introduces and encourages the democratization of football is good. I mean, you don't even have to issue shares to clubs. The government could introduce legislation. It says that it's committed to a fan-led review. Why doesn't the government say that for football clubs to be granted a license by the local authority, a fan organisation has to have 3 directors on the board, and those directors carry a single vote each in respect of all decisions. Or they have a golden vote of veto. So that there are ways around this, which would address some of the governance issues which presently exist in English football.
Do you think it's likely to be successfully introduced?
It depends where the pressure comes from. We have a government at present which is very free market focused. So therefore, I think it would go potentially against the ethos of the Conservative Party. Having said that, we also have a very populist prime minister, and regardless of your individual politics, Oliver Dowden has actually been really on the side of the Angels in the last 48 hours. And I've spoken to Damien Collins, who used to be chair of DCMS with regards to sport. And again, he's fully aware of the importance of football to fans. And it is, from my discussions with him, he's always been on the side of the fans. Same with Andy Burnham. So I think there is an element of cross-party support for this. The people who don't like football are unlikely to be on DCMS in respect of sport anyway.
Yeah, I think this is an absolute tap-in for whichever party decides to pick this up and run with it. I think it's an absolute tap-in to gain a hell of a lot of support for putting the direction, at least, of football back into the hands of fans. I just think, as much as I would love to see it, and I really want to see 50+1 introduced in England, you're not going to mandate it, because I think that's probably illegal to mandate it. You're not going to be able to force Sheikh Mansour to sell 50% of his club, because he's not going to need the money to. He's not going to be incentivized to. So I think the season ticket poll, or as you said, seats on the board, that's something we're doing with Stretford Paddock FC. Is we made an announcement on Monday. We said that the direction of the club is going to live with the fans. We're going to put, we've already elected 1 fan member to the board, and we're introducing memberships where members will get a say on every major topic, and we will be led by the fans, and it will be a fan-run football club. A certain milestone of members will elect more and more fans to the board, and they can be elected amongst the fans. I can't talk about this and what I want to see for United without doing the exact same thing with the football club I run. So that's what we decided to do on Monday. And for anyone watching, more information will be on that as soon as I have it. But I just don't think that you can legislate. It has to come from within the clubs itself, doesn't it?
To a certain extent, but are people in power ever going to vote for a dilution of power? Power is a very seductive thing, and even if you've got some form of democratic board, it doesn't necessarily always work hugely successful. I used to be a member at FC United of Manchester, and as we all know, a lot of progress was made at the club, and then things started to deteriorate slightly when people started to fall out. So there's no guarantees, but at least it means that we as football fans, who are the biggest investors in football, because we invest with our hearts and rather than dollars, and that investment is absolutely critical, because you will be at Manchester United till you die, as will all of the other Reds that It's the same with City fans. It's the same with Liverpool fans. It's not fan specific. It's part of our culture as far as the game is concerned. And as we are lifelong investors, we do deserve some form of representation.
Yeah. Do you think the Glazers are on the exit ramp. Do you think this is something that we could use to expedite them going, or do you think that the club's just too valuable in terms of cash to see any sort of ownership change of hands?
I think the only potential good thing which has come out of flushing out the Super League proposals is that they cannot do it again. So therefore, where can they go if they want to make more money out of Manchester United? And therefore, there's a case for saying that the present market price of Manchester United shares is broadly where it's going to be, because the club's not going to change radically. Football's not going to change radically again in terms of things such as these proposals. So if somebody comes along and says to the Glazers, the share price is currently $16.50, we'll offer you all $22 for your shares. So we're going to offer you an extra third or an extra half over the existing share price. They'll go, well, that's $3.5 billion. I could do a lot with that. They know that they can never set foot in Manchester. So, why not just go and take? So if somebody comes in with a big offer, I think they are probably more minded to take that offer after the events of the last 24 hours than ever before. The reason why they've turned down offers for the club before is because they honestly thought that if they did manage to get a deal where they could sell their own rights, then the value of the club would shoot up. I think that particular ship has sailed at present, and therefore the opportunities for further gains in value of Manchester United on the stock market is limited. So why not just go and sell out, bank the money, put that into one of their NFL franchises, put it into Tampa, whatever it's going to be, and live the rest of their lives without being loathed by every single United fan apart from the deluded.
I don't know where we take it from that. I'm just going to say perfect way to end it, and I agree, frankly. And let's just say, fingers crossed, we hope that magic person's out there. I'm not sure it's Conor McGregor, as fun as that could be, but the way this week's gone, I'm not ruling it out. So, like I said, if you're interested in football finance, you need to be checking this out. It's absolutely fantastic. Kieran does a lot of work right up and down the pyramid, and has also got a really good podcast, which I'll link both of those in the descriptions below. Kieran, thank you again for joining me, and I guess might as well book you in for April 21st next year, eh?
I'll stick it in the diary now, Stephen. Great to talk to you. Thanks so much for the invite, buddy.
Awesome. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Laters.